And we are back. Welcome
It's
to
the Bottomless Podcast, bitches! Woo!
It's gonna be a rowdy night.
It's the Bottomless Podcast. That is spelled BTT.
Bottomless.
It's recorded, y'all, on November 8th, 2020. Biden won the Electoral College, bitches! Wah, wah. Okay.
And if you are listening, it's myself, Kevin, and I am joined by
Leslie.
Vincent.
And we are just three friends. I live in Floribama. Leslie lives in Hawaii. And Vince lives Hawaii and Los Angeles. And this episode is special because you can see early. We got the drinks.
We're lit.
It's fucking lit. Let's do this. Y'all want to toast real quick to the cams?
Yes.
Cheers.
To not, as I saw someone put, I think on Twitter, to not a free descent into hell. Yes.
All right, Leslie, whenever you're ready, take us away.
Yeah.
I'm gonna let you kick it off.
Leslie has some thoughts, y'all.
So we're just gonna share some raw reactions to the state of affairs right now. And as I said to my dear friends, Vincent and Kevin, I tend to cut myself off. And actually, this podcast has been a good exercise in noticing that and thinking about the dynamics of why. And some of those dynamics are things that I want to resist and push back on, and not at all coming from them. So yeah, I'm gonna speak my mind and try my best to say what I actually feel, which might still come out super muddled, so I'm sorry in advance. But it won't come out muddled because I am self-conscious and trying to hold back, because I don't want to do that today. I want for future myself and for my friends who listen to this to try and express what I'm thinking and feeling right now, because it's a historic time. Yeah. So I have different... Ideally, I would have had time to order these into a really nice flow that would have hit well, but I'm just going to bounce around to the different things I'm thinking. First, I want to fucking say thank you, Black women. The people who are at the intersection of the most forms of oppression in the United States are the fucking ones who fucking got us here. And not just the elected officials, the people on the ground, the people going without credit who have done the grassroots movement and organizing. The people who have got us to a point where the youth vote, ages 18 to 29, is part of who handed us this victory, primarily youth voters of color. White youth voters, y'all are still hovering around 50-something%. I'll let you take that as you will. Indigenous people as well, who have been hurt the most by the system that we're all complicit in, also delivered, like in some areas, there was like a 99% turnout for Biden. And not because I'm sure anybody is excited about voting for Biden, but because an understanding of what was at stake. And I don't know if I said this before we cut off. I'll say it again. We need to stop saying thank you and get ourselves on the ground underneath these people and raise them up. And if that takes throwing away an opportunity on our end, a perceived like, wow, we both had a fair shot. No, give it to the people who we have just been saying thank you to, instead of actually doing anything and putting ourselves on the line in a real way. So I think I was next transitioning into talking about the idea that, you know, we're excited to be able to hold Joe Biden and Kamala Harris accountable, which is something, a sentiment that Vincent has also said. And it definitely speaks to how low the bar is, that's what we are excited about, but I will take it, and I am excited. And that sentiment can't undercut the indescribable level of relief that I think so many people are feeling, that at least it's them. And that at least, even if there might be ahead a struggle with Trump still ineptly attempting to pull off a coup that we're going to have to stand against, at least the Electoral College did fall in favor of Biden, because it would be much harder to struggle toward that end if the Electoral College had gone to Trump. So it's not even so much celebrating, like, you know, the sad fact that we would have to celebrate Biden as some kind of hero, because he's not. But we don't even get to celebrate that. It's celebrating that at least in the struggle toward getting Trump out of office, we have the Electoral College secured. So that's my thoughts on that. I also wanted to acknowledge the horrendous record that Kamala Harris has on criminal justice, probably a million other things that I'm not even up to date on. And the fact that she hasn't, to my knowledge, publicly acknowledged, let alone apologized for and owned that, and made that even a part of her campaign, as in, like, I recognize that I was wrong, and, like, here's the steps I'm going to take to rectify, and not only rectify, but push past. So, want to acknowledge that. Also, same thing with Biden, with the 94 crime bill, a complete failure to acknowledge it. In fact, I think the only things I've seen is he's sort of, like, said, like, yeah, you know, Black people supported that too. Like, he hasn't done any kind of acknowledgement, let alone apology for
he did do one, like, literally
did
2 weeks ago, like right before the election, of course.
Okay,
Surprise.
I missed that. Well, yeah. So anyway, I wanted to acknowledge that and say that I very much feel that, while also feeling indescribably shook that we have our first daughter of an immigrant, Black, Asian vice president. Like, literally, I cannot, like, you know, and if you don't get it, like, that's okay. You don't need to talk down on people who do. If you don't get it, bye. Like, yes, representation without policies that actually forward the group that you are supposedly representing, let alone all people, doesn't matter in a sense, but at the highest, at this level, it fucking matters. And, you know, I cry seeing all the memes. Thank you to the meme creators right now, because they're hitting on something that's so real. You know, I don't know if you guys have seen the one of, like, all the emojis of the old white man, and then boom, there's, like, a Black woman. Here we are. Woo! And, like, you know, there's just so many good ones. And it does matter. It does matter, and it has real power. It's not just about emotionality. I feel like if I get the chance to have a daughter, I'm just fucking excited that, like, Kamala Harris is going to have happened. Like, it does matter. I don't want to say that. Like, I'm so tired of people, like, it's both. You can acknowledge all the problems and fucking celebrate and have a little joy and have a little hope. So I wanted to say that. While also, yes, like, you guys have wreaked havoc upon the communities that brought you into office. So you better recognize and respond to the people now that you've been elected. The last thing that I wanted to say, 2 things, is I wanted to give a personal shout out to my incredible sister, Elise, because she's the hero. She's one of the people who's working for a grassroots organization that did the messaging and organizing necessary to flip some of these states that ultimately have saved us from another 4 years of Trump. So Elise, you're my hero, and I love you so much, and I'm so proud to be your sister. And lastly, I wanted to say that, what is the last thing? Oh, yeah, I wanted to go on a personal note. I don't know if anyone will be able to relate to this. I realized that I tend to assume that I'm on the same page as a lot of people about certain things, so I never even say it because I feel like it's an assumed thing. And I realized, talking to a few people over the past few weeks, that a lot of people don't feel this way. So I wanted to put out for anyone who did. I have had a journey with increasing mental health difficulties over the past year and a half-ish, 2 years, that really had some big culminations that were very hard to get through. And also, I'm doing a lot better now. And this isn't at all I hate talking about it because I hate the idea that I'm trying to create a narrative of, like, where someone would feel sorry for me, but I'm tired of also doing that and cutting myself off. So I'm just going to say I've had that struggle, and leading up to this election for a long time, I honestly felt like I was pretending whenever I would talk about Christmas, like being together with people I love, or even 2021. I felt like we all knew that I was probably going to die. It's so illogical, but I felt like I was going to die. I think that that's the level of difficulty that I was having. Like, and for the first time, like just today, like last night, I was finally starting to process, like, I felt like I'm not pretending when I talk about coming home for Christmas and, like, being around in 2021. And that sounds so dramatic. And it's not like just because of Trump, but he was a big part because I literally could not conceptualize another 4 years of not him as an individual, but what it would mean that we had reelected him. There are so many applications to what that would have meant and what life would have looked like. And I just, for a long time, have felt like I was going to die soon. And I hate how dramatic that sounds, but I'm tired of pretending like it's not real. And I don't feel that way, finally. And it's not because suddenly everything's perfect at all, even close. It's because there's actual hope, and because I look around and I see the incredible people who have spoken, right? The exit polls, the American people speaking on things that they want. And again, the youth vote. And yeah, when you fall in love, or people say, talk about this, like if you can relate to it from a personal experience or from having read the poets or any love story, they talk about, you look around and everything looks new and everything looks fresh and there's possibility and you see beauty and things. That's how I felt today. And not because of some illusion. Yeah, not because of some illusion of how great things are now, but because there's actual like hope and like possibilities that we won't have to fight through, but that at least the Electoral College went to Biden. So I'm not overstating what we're celebrating, but I also just like want to hold the space for the real joy and hope that I think a lot of people are feeling right now. Finn, I really want to hear your guys' thoughts.
Vince.
Well, I don't know. I'm overwhelmed. In a good way.
That too.
Well, I just can't go after Leslie. So, yeah. So, all that emotion, I retweet that. I don't. There's like a few things. It's like been kind of schizophrenic because we didn't find out like at one time. Like it's been a slow burn. Just like a lot of conflicting opinions, but honestly, just seeing like Leslie's reaction, but also like I went to a friend's last night to celebrate, and seeing like my friends' reactions, like people I really care about. It's like it's so soul fulfilling. Like it feels good. And if anyone knows me, I'm not. I love to scream into the ether about capitalism and Biden and like everything I hate about them. And don't worry, that is coming. But I will get there. But I don't know. It's just it's heart filling to see. So to get my thoughts straight, I told Leslie I'll just read this off. I don't think I can say this impromptu well, but I've been trying to journal my thoughts a bit. And the good thoughts about this is about how we basically we repudiated Trump. And Trump was like an avatar, I feel like, for a world view that just was very incongruent with like the people that I know and like care about. But honestly, I think most people, like despite the contentious nature of politics, I think most people are where we are. Like that's just the reality. Like sorry, Trumpists and conservatives, like that's the reality. And to me, there's this worldview that we have. This might be offensive to some conservatives, but if it is, this isn't the
Let's
episode.
Let's not do that on this episode.
Yeah, this isn't the episode for you. Actually, you should listen, but
this isn't for you. Oh yeah, actually, yeah. Sorry. It is. Please listen to us.
But for us, I feel like we have a worldview, and most people in our society have a worldview that think that equality, equitable, and enriching life is a right innate to all of us, regardless of race, religion, gender, sexuality, or where you work. And you can think that, but Trump is an avatar for a worldview that either explicitly or implicitly disagrees with that. So it's just so beautiful to see our country repudiate that worldview. Largely because a lot of people I know are part of some of those groups, right? Maybe they're a minority in some sense, or maybe they just have like financial precarity. And I don't know. It feels good. And it's a win we fucking needed in 2020.
Yes, that's what
we fucking needed it. Like, God. Jesus. But I don't know. It feels good. And it's been schizophrenic, but honestly, the more I get to talk to like my friends and see them just be so excited and some people just FaceTiming me, and as I pick up, they're just like twerking on the kitchen counter out of excitement, not exaggerating.
Yeah. Who was that?
Kaylin, you know who you are. I wasn't ready. No, it's fulfilling. And I'll leave it at that. I have some less joyous thoughts, but I feel like it's worth sitting in that moment.
It's worth also acknowledging, because I'm going to acknowledge one of the less joyous thoughts real quick, and then we should burst into Kevin and whatever it is, Kevin, that you want to share. But
he's pissed. he's pissed about this election.
I'm
just kidding. What if after all that he was just like, election fraud?
Twist bees, I voted for Trump. No, I'm totally kidding. I did want to say I'm glad that Vincent said what he said, because it was something that I had written down in my haze of trying to gather my thoughts, which is that recognizing that this win doesn't address the contingency of his supporters who have been emboldened by his racist, sexist, classist, homophobic, anti-immigrant, anti-Islamic, autocratic, fascist rhetoric, actions, and policies. I wrote that down so that I could try to say what I think. And the possibility of widespread violent backlash, not just in the streets, but to the level that we've seen with those Trump supporters who got emboldened enough to go try to carry out that kidnapping. And it was right of who was the governor? Was it Michigan?
Yeah. Oh shit! I didn't know that.
Yeah. So, and that happened a while ago. So it's not.
And then he was like, Michigan actually went to me. Like, after that, you really thought.
Yes. So, I mean, it is good to acknowledge that, but I just don't think that those things have to block each other out. We can celebrate and also see what it is that's ahead of us leading up to the transition of power that we'll see. Also, sorry, while I'm on my flow, I'm going to say my last thing that I forgot to say, which is I did want to read this quote from Sonia Renee Taylor, who's somebody who I started following when COVID hit because of this quote, and I think it's worth repeating. Thank you, Sonia, for all the work that you do on social media and elsewhere to just be an authentic voice, saying what you want to say and not worrying about, oh my gosh, all the backlash you receive, all the hate, all the vitriol. Thank you for just speaking. So what she said is, we will not go back to normal. Normal never was. Our pre-corona existence, and you can insert pre-Trump here, was not normal other than we normalized greed, inequity, exhaustion, depletion, extraction, disconnection, confusion, rage, hoarding, hate, and lack. We should not long to return. So I don't want to get back to normal. I'm inserting myself here. The rest of the quote says, we are being given the opportunity to stitch a new garment, one that fits all of humanity and nature. And yeah, it's not the most ideal opportunity. We're not sitting out here with amazing candidates, but we actually have the opportunity. And I'm excited about that. So excited.
As someone who voted for Trump in 2016, I saw Kamala get on stage and I started crying. Because a Southeastern Asian woman and a woman of color, a Jamaican woman, is the vice president of the United States, and they were playing what felt like hip hop music behind it, and I don't know how to explain my emotion in that moment.
It's lit.
I don't know how to explain.
Cry those tears. You better cry those Korean Puerto Rican tears. You better cry those son of immigrants tears.
I've never cared about politics until now. I've never taken seriously presidential elections till now. Even back in 2016, it was still a game to me, and everything changed this spring and summer when I watched innocent Black men and women wrongfully killed and nothing done about it. And so me and Vince talked about it and said, I think this is going to shift the landscape. I think this is going to affect the presidential election. And come election day, I still wasn't sure. And it wasn't until the votes got to about 250, 260 that I said, oh shit, I think, I think, I, we might have, they might have done it. They might have done it.
Still wasn't even accepting it at that point, just to say, like, I was so
Yeah.
like, I am not gonna fucking celebrate until we're
Yeah.
fucking shook, because I'm not about to put myself through that.
No, fair. So I'll let that speak for itself. But I want to say I'm over. I put this on Facebook, and I'll just say it again here. This moment when I saw Madam Vice President Kamala Harris walk onto that stage in Washington, I put it on Facebook, and I said, this moment gives me hope that this country still has some fight left in it. It tells me that just maybe you can't just sit back and watch unarmed Black men and women get wrongfully murdered by police in this country and continue business as usual. And so I'll just leave it at that this, and even in my detachment from politics, my connection to ethics and to humanity that I've developed this year, that I've developed more deeply and intensely with the death of George Floyd, Elijah McCain, um, everyone else who was murdered. It's just slipping my mind right now. My connection to humanity pressed me into politics because it's bigger than politics. And so to see Kamala Harris walk on that stage was of course, like Vince said, it was the best moment of 2020.
I love you guys.
Love
I
you.
said it.
Love you guys too. Wait, and just while we're on the celebratory wave, speaking of Black Lives Matter, I need everyone right now to pause this episode. Don't exit out and come back and finish, please. But pause this episode and go listen to Cori Bush's acceptance speech. So I'm not sure if people are familiar, but speaking of Black women coming through, speaking of the protests changing, the momentum in this election, Cori Bush was recently elected to Congress. She represents a district in St. Louis. She got elected to the House, but it's amazing because she's an organizer. She's a Black Lives Matter organizer. She's not like a politician, but via grassroots support, sponsored by like Justice Democrats, she got elected, as well as a whole slew of other truly progressive people. But I think her nomination in itself is like, ooh, we voted out Trump and elected a Black Lives Matter organizer to Congress. Like,
Fucking lit. Yep.
Yeah.
And on that same vein, I just want to give a shout out to the second Native Hawaiian ever elected to Congress, which is so sad. But Senator Kaiali'i Kahele, congratulations to you. Hawaii became a state, heavy eyebrow, in 1959. And this is only the second Native Hawaiian that we've ever sent to Congress. So congratulations on that monumental win. And I have so much to learn as an American who has moved to Hawaii and quite honestly didn't even really know much about how Hawaii became a heavy eyebrow, air quote, American state. And I just want to say I'm dedicated to continuing to learn, and I am so thankful for the opportunity to learn and to try and be part of uplifting and not part of the problem.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, that being said,
I'm so glad that we got to talk. You know, like I was like really looking forward to talking to you guys. It's almost good. So yesterday, I guess they did Vincent and Kevin did a celebratory Among Us game that I actually totally missed because I hadn't seen the text. And in a way, I'm kind of glad that ended up that way because we would have missed some of this explosive, like
you're
coming together, talking for the first time since,
This is genuine reaction.
This is real, y'all. Yeah.
That being said, I do have one big concern.
Do it. Fucking okay. Yes, do it.
One concern.
Only one?
Well, like it has many manifestations, but a primary concern about this election that I've been going back and forth on if I should like wait to say something, like let people celebrate, but I'm concerned to not speak up because it's surreal, actually. And I think last time in our last episode, I said I was excited like for the new experience of like agitating under not Trumpism. But it's just weird seeing this happen in real time. But there's this narrative, media narrative, like political narrative, like being manufactured in real time on the news, on Twitter, that just kind of goes against everything that we just celebrated, right? Beyond like just the representation, but like speaking to the ways like Black women delivered this election victory, the youth delivered this election victory. And there's this narrative that's saying, don't listen to them and what they want and their priorities.
They almost cost the election, right?
They almost cost us the election. We need to get more Republicans.
More white, working class.
I'll save, first of all, it's not bared out in any sort of reality or data. I'll save that. But my concern is that we remove the avatar that is Trump. We have done nothing, and I mean quite literally nothing, to remove the ideology of Trumpism. Yes. And the concern is, if we don't have very sobered and honest reflections on how we got here, is that we'll get another Trump who is actually competent and who's an ideologue instead of a narcissist. I don't think Trump is an ideologue that like has this vision of corporatist conservative America. He just likes power and it makes him feel good and it makes him more powerful. But if we get a politician who has a very actualized and dedicated worldview of what all those things that we said Trump embodies, that's much more scary than the reality of Trump. Trump was horrible, but it can get worse. And my concern is we're not having that. The left is having that conversation, like the actual left, not like the political establishment. But there's an active counter narrative being manufactured, and it's very concerning to me. Because if we get pacified, like Trump was hard enough. Like I don't know how to agitate against someone that's like Trump, but smart,
competent. Yeah, you're so right.
Like I have no idea. I mean, we joke about fascism, but you can't be a fascist. I mean, you can be, but like that's not that far removed from possibility after a Biden presidency.
He opened the door wide open and built a base that would jump into the arms of a more competent Trump figure.
And our response was to get rid of Trump, the avatar, but to elect the vice president of the previous administration that quite literally set the groundwork for a Trump administration. So
talk about it.
We've got rid of the avatar, but returning to a status quo that fosters the need for another Trump-like figure without addressing any real underlying anxieties. And that's my concern. And it's concerning and also like almost intriguing in how obvious that seems to me and how like empirically it seems, right? Like if you don't believe me, more of every demographic except white men voted for Trump. Trump got more percentage of the Republican vote this election. More people, millions more, voted for Trump this time. So the idea that removing him is somehow repudiating that worldview from our collective conscious is like ridiculously silly to me. And that's a very real concern. And to be fair, I'm trying to moderate myself. Not now, obviously, but in most conversations, I don't want to be a Debbie Downer, but I'm just scared that we'll get excited and harden an understanding of what happened that excludes possibilities of the necessary changes to not have a worse Trump in the future.
1,000% agree. And this is coming to you live from the man who accurately predicted how this election would go down, y'all, per our last episode. So since he won't toot his own horn, I will do his video essay dropping TBD sometime in the future.
Hopefully.
Where he delves more into what he just said. So if what he just said intrigues you or rings true with things you've been thinking about, keep an eye out. We will push it out when he produces it.
So my last little bit of ruining the fun. Like let's say I'm trying to write an essay. So I have an analogy that is unprocessed, so it might not make sense because it's about gardening, which I don't really do, though I am trying to be a plant dad. But Leslie's a resident expert. So the thought is, on the note of what I just said, is that Trump is like if there's a flower, it's like the bulb of the flower, and we just cut the head of the flower off. But we have yet to do any work of actually removing the plant itself or changing the soil. And in fact, we've elected an administration that will continue, or by every indication, explicit or implicit, will continue planting those same plants. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, that was not a certain yes from Leslie.
No, I was gonna, okay, full disclosure, y'all. Vincent asked me to extend on this garden metaphor off podcast, so that's why I'm doing it, just so we know, because this metaphor is lovely, but to extend on it a little bit, if you garden at all, even extrapolating on the idea even more, because if you do cut off the flower or like the greenery from a bulb in real life, if we're going to treat the metaphor as for what it is, it might actually die. Like the bulb wouldn't necessarily sprout right back up, but you could frame it as, instead of a bulb, maybe like the roots of a tree. Like if you just go down and like chop off one of the roots of a tree in an attempt to try and hurt it, it will actually send out so many more suckers as a reaction, and they'll reach further across the ground underneath in ways you can't even see or predict. So to me, that's a really powerful gardening metaphor.
That's a scary metaphor.
Yes, because then it's seeing it for what it is, right? Because it is a tree, and there is a root, and then there is a trunk, and then there are branches, and then there is fruit. And so like it puts it in context of like, we can't be out here jabbing off little roots, because actually the more roots that we're like, oh, we'll just cut that sucker off. No, it's sending out 10 more in its place. It's clear that the whole tree needs to be like excavated. The soil needs to be refertilized with enriching nutrients.
From the bottom up.
From the bottom up, because the soil has been so depleted by that tree. And then we need to replant. And think about what we want to plant, and not just scatter seeds of sound bites and feel good sentiments. We need to think about what we want to grow in our garden. And some plants pollinate each other. Some plants, if you plant one, so the garden metaphor actually holds a lot of water. You can go on and on.
I'm vibing with this. All right, got that. I'm going to watch this back so many times to help formulate my essay. So
I'm going to watch this whole intro back so many times as just like emotional catharsis and release. Because I don't even know what I've been saying for the past half hour, to be honest. I've just been vibing with you guys, so.
Oh, yeah. Celebrate. Soak in the moment.
And also.
But stay sober.
Think about what.
Not literally sober. Can't relate to that, but like.
Yeah.
Stay.
Clear-eyed.
I think an Argent. Well, I don't be here too long.
Do it. Let's do another half hour. Go ahead. I hear it in your voice.
Have you guys seen the? I think one of our friends made it, or he redid it, like the gospel song, "Yes, Lord, for the rest of our days." And every time you think the song's over, it's like, "Yes, Lord." It just keeps coming. That's this conversation. It will never end. No, on the note of like parting words, is like, this is a special for people. I think I've said before, in my view, our generation has like two radicalization moments. First was the older millennials in the financial crisis of 2008. And for us, I think it was Trump's election, for everyone I know at least. So I think we should celebrate this and just really lean into it while recognizing and not forgetting like what got us individually here, and those feelings, and be sober-minded. But that doesn't mean muting our celebration. So I will probably
Exactly. And what does celebration mean? Celebration can mean fucking putting boots to the ground and like uplifting other people and not just focusing on like how you feel. You know, it's not even like they have to be separate. Like celebrate by organizing and by pressing forward and holding soberly like what's at stake in the work that we have to do. And that's all to myself, y'all. Preaching to myself.
And also to like really, again, like I said before, like what I imagine the worldview that the people hold that repudiated Trump, like really taking that seriously. Because I have seen, look, I've said off podcasts, like I would be lying if I didn't say there's certain conservative popular figures who are asking for participation trophies, and I'm eating that shit up. Like, no, I'm eating it up. But I don't want to forget the worldview that I claim to espousing and repudiating Trump. And I see people saying things like, oh, well, Flint didn't vote blue enough, so fuck their water. Like, what, like literally what? Like, let's celebrate for what this should represent and really lean into what this actually represents, right? I'll get off my soapbox.
Let's lean into getting messy with each other.
You said get messy with each other? Or?
Get messy. Yeah, get messy with each other. not hitting? Oh, well, it hit for me.
I don't know where that's going.
Never mind.
Nah, get messy with each other.
Leslie 2020, get messy with each other.
Hey, they call her Messy Leslie.
Ooh, messy, as my niece calls me, Lessie. Shout out to my niece. I love you. Both of you.
Okay, guys, thank you for listening to our election reaction video. If you enjoyed, please subscribe. We have Instagram, we have Twitter, we have YouTube. On all three, it should be Bottomless Podcast. That's BTTMLESS. And again, if this is your first time, thank you, my God, for watching or listening. And if this is your return, if you are a return person, thank you for coming back. We truly love each and every single one of you. And thank you. And we will see you guys next episode.
1, 2, 3.
Shay.
Cheers.
Ah.
Hey.